Okay. I didn't drop that. That's suspicious. Why is that suspicious to me? Extra points for me today. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my I get it wrong every single time. Welcome to my October reading wrap up. We're gonna go through all of the books obviously that I read this month, my ratings, my reviews, all the good stuff. You guys know how it goes at this point. I've read 14 books in the month of October. There were 7 romances and 6 fantasies. That's honestly the most romances I've read most recently. Some of the romances kind of had like a magical element to it, so I feel like you can like count it as like a magical realism, almost like a fantasy element to it. Anyway, those are all the genres that I read this month, so we are gonna get right into it. First book of the month that I finished was Hopeless by Elsie Silver. I actually started this the end of September and I finished it like right in the beginning of October. This is the last and final book in the Chestnut Spring series. It's a cowboy small town romance series. This is the 5th one. Yes, there's 5 books in it. This one is Beau's story, and honestly it was my most anticipated read because when you read the first one, Flawless, you get kind of like little hints of Beau and his personality, and you're kind of intrigued throughout the whole series. You get kind of like a almost mystery element of what he's about and like what he's doing. You kind of want to know more about him, and I was just really excited to get his final story because so much goes on with him like in the background and like behind the scenes that you're just like waiting to know. So I was so excited, and this one I think I gave 4 stars. It's not my favorite out of the whole series, which is like a little bit disappointing because I thought it would be, but it was still honestly so good. I love Elsie Silver's writing. It is so fast-paced. It's so fun. She throws like humor into it, but also you get like the personalities and like the depth of each character, and it's so good. You also get like the found family because Beau is part of the Eaton brothers, and you get their father, and then you get Jasper. There's so many characters that up until this 5th book you get so many hints of and cameos of, and honestly that was like my favorite part of this book is the cameos of everyone together, the whole family together. But this is a fake fiance trope and also an age gap trope, and age gap isn't my favorite trope, so I knew going into it it wasn't gonna be my favorite. I mean, I hoped that it was, but I knew it wasn't because that's just not my favorite trope. But she did such an amazing job of it. I feel like the age gap was a pretty big gap, but she didn't really focus on that. Obviously it was brought up, it was brought to attention, there's an age gap going on, but it really wasn't in any negative light, you know what I mean? Because sometimes there's an age gap where the girl's like really young and the guy's like so old that you're like, this just shouldn't be happening, but it didn't really bother me in this book. I really enjoyed it. I loved Bailey's character. I think she was just so fun. Knowing her background and the way that her and Beau connected, in the way that he needed someone to understand him because he went through a lot, I liked their connection. But yeah, it's just not my favorite in the whole series, but it was really good. I think it was a great way to end the series, honestly, too, because you get the full story of everyone. I could read about this setting and town and characters and all of them together for honestly forever. Like, I want more of their books. I love them all together. I grew so connected to all of these characters throughout the whole series. So that was the first book that I completed in the month of October. Then I read Maybe Meant to Be by K.L. Walther. This book I randomly picked up and I honestly wasn't gonna read it this month. It was on my TBR from my TBR video from last month, and I think it was the only one from that TBR that I ended up reading. But this one I kind of randomly picked up. It's very fast-paced. She's the same author of Summer Broken Rules, What Happens After Midnight, and I read the 2 of those, so I was excited to read another one of hers because her writing's very fast-paced. It's kind of the books you can sit and just binge in a full day. So this one was giving me fall vibes, obviously, from the cover, so I was excited to start this in the beginning of October. It just felt right. This takes place, I believe, at a prep school, and you're following the 2 main characters. I think it's Charlie. Yes, Sage and Charlie. And the both of them, like, growing up are just like everyone around like the school and everything just believe that they're like meant to be because they're the best of friends. They do everything together. Everyone thinks they're like soulmates in that way, but you get both of their point of views and you follow both their stories and both of their like love relationships and how they're navigating that, and it's not with each other. So Sage ends up in this like secret little romance with Charlie's brother, and Charlie finds a connection with a new student at the school. So everyone thinks they're supposed to be together, but they have their own relationship stuff going on, and you kind of follow that and you follow their friendship together. It's definitely different than I thought it was going to be because when I read the back of it, I actually thought that it was just following Sage's journey with Charlie's brother, but actually it just follows both of their relationships, which is very interesting. I ended up liking Charlie's side of his point of view more than I like Sage's and her relationship. I feel like hers was not as kind of in depth. You didn't really see too much of theirs for me to like feel the connection, but I really enjoyed Charlie's side of the relationship and what he was going through and he was doing. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It's nothing crazy. I didn't really feel connected to the characters of the story, but it was one that I just binged in a day. Like I said, her writing is really fast paced, so I feel like I don't really connect too much to YA books like this, but I think they're good palate cleansers and good books to just like throw in throughout the month. So I'm happy that I read it, but it was nothing too crazy. Then I read a book on my Kindle called The Grumpo Who Stole Summer by Ella Fields. I read another one of Ella Fields' books called Serenading Heartbreak, and I really enjoyed that one. And this one is just like a short short romance book, and it's honestly more heavier than I thought it was gonna be. I also gave this one 3 stars. It's basically about these 2 characters who meet up once a year at her sister's summer parties, and they kind of connect, and it's just the 2 of them that one time every year, but they don't know too much about each other. He's kind of very surface level and very vague with her, but she's very intrigued with him and all of this. So stuff goes down between the 2 of them. You get both timelines. So you get them every summer, like what happened between them, and then you get them present day. They haven't spoken in a few years. Something happened between them, and she is now sent over to the library that he actually owns, or his like family. I think he half owns it. His family kind of owns it. So whatever. He works there. They kind of have to be in this forced proximity of working with each other, but they're fighting because something happened back then, and you end up finding out what happened. But this one was definitely heavier than I thought because there's like alcohol use involved. Check trigger warnings if you're gonna read this one, but also I really like the way Ella Fields, I love her writing. I like the dialogue she uses, and I like the way that she creates the stories. This one wasn't really my favorite just because of the characters. I didn't really like them because they're very toxic with each other. Honestly, a toxic romance and toxicity between the 2, but I did enjoy reading their story. It was honestly just a fast-paced, fun read with heavier topics included within the romance. Nothing too crazy, but I did enjoy it because I really do like Ella Fields' writing, and she writes romance books, but she also writes fantasy. So I really want to read some of her fantasy books. I bought one recently because I want to try it out because again, I love her writing. Now we're getting into the month where I started my Throne of Glass journey. So I didn't read all of these back to back, but I'm going to talk about all of the Throne of Glass books I've read so far together. In the month of October, I honestly kind of fell down the the Throne of Glass rabbit hole. I got sucked in. I got really deep into the series. So for the first 5 books of Throne of Glass, I actually started with Assassin's Blade. So if you don't know the Throne of Glass series, there's different ways you can start the series. You can start with Throne of Glass and read it, and then I think the 3rd you would read Assassin's Blade, because Assassin's Blade is just a series of I think 5 novellas, and it just follows the main character like years prior to what happens in Throne of Glass and kind of how she became who she was in the start of Throne of Glass. So it's kind of like a prequel, but you can either read it in the first and read it as the first book in the series, or you can read it the 3rd one, I believe. I don't know, but you can either read it first or around the 3rd spot. I ended up reading it first, and I'm gonna stand by this to anyone that asks me. I think reading Assassin's Blade first is the way to go. You get her background and you become connected to her and her journey before, and like you see what's happened to her, the pain she's gone through, the journey she's gone through, and it sets up perfectly for Throne of Glass. Like I just in my heart believe Assassin's Blade should be read first, and I know some people won't agree with that because they'll say you don't feel as connected. You know, you can go back to like a flashback in Assassin's Blade in the middle of the series and see more of emotional connection to it, but I personally was seriously connected to Assassin's Blade. I cried at the end of it. Like I felt emotionally connected, and going into Throne of Glass I actually cared about the main character and cared about what was going on with her and her journey starting, and I honestly loved reading Assassin's Blade first. Now let's go through each one, what I rated them, and some thoughts between them. I did not film a Throne of Glass reading vlog, but when I read Kingdom of Ash, which is the last book in the series, it's gonna be in a reading vlog somewhere on my channel. So if you see Kingdom of Ash in a thumbnail anywhere on my channel, hopefully in November, just know that I'm gonna put in that video a Throne of Glass spoiler section. I'm gonna give all my thoughts on it, and I also think that Destiny and I on our podcast on Bookmarked, if you guys don't listen, definitely go check us out. But we're gonna do a Throne of Glass episode eventually once I finish the series, so you guys will have my thoughts, my spoiler-free thoughts if you've read the series eventually, but after I finish it. So Assassin's Blade I ended up giving 4 stars. I was connected to this one. I ended up caring about what her journey was going to be after this, but 4 stars. I gave Throne of Glass 4.25 stars. I honestly loved the setting of this, meeting all the characters, learning more of the politics, and kind of seeing how she's connecting Assassin's Blade and like throwing in little things from Assassin's Blade into this book. And it's like she'll throw in Throne of Glass something that happens in Assassin's Blade, like very vaguely. She'll just like mention it. I'm like, oh, I know what happened. I know the background. I know the history and the story of what happened before that. So again, I really think reading this first is the way to go, but 4.25. And then I read Crown of Midnight, where this is where I got very connected and attached and just immersed in the story. Like I got really connected in this one. I gave this 4.5 stars. You find out so much in this one, like so much that I think sets up great for the rest of the story. Like this one I think is one of my favorites of the series so far, and I think this one just like really connects you to the characters and the way that the story is going to continue going. Like lots happens in this one, but yeah, this one was my favorite. After reading this, I was just like, I know I'm gonna be obsessed with this entire series. And then you go into Heir of Fire, which I know a lot of people say this is like one of their favorites, but I gave this one 4 stars. It was good, but after Crown of Midnight, things that happened in this one kind of not slow down, but switch pace a little bit, and that kind of slowed me down. So it was good, but you meet a lot of new characters, you meet a lot of new places and settings and stuff, and like kind of like a different storyline takes place, and it was hard for me to connect to that and kind of follow along with that, because after reading the first 3, I'm just like so engrossed in what was happening. So like starting off onto this one, it just felt a little slow to me, but for good reason. Like after finishing this and going into the next one, I was like, oh, this whole book was a setup for the most perfect reason, and it connects so amazingly. Like if you're reading this series and you think any part is boring, like she's doing it for a reason. It may feel boring at the moment, and it may feel not significant in the moment, but just know she has tricks up her sleeve and she knows what she's doing. After that, the last book of Throne of Glass I read in the month of October October was Queen of Shadows, which I just most recently finished. This one did it for me. I gave this one 5 stars. This is where I mean like the whole series up until this point, everything connects. You understand why she said everything that she did in all of the other books. I finished it and I was just completely mind blown. There's a reading vlog of me reading it, spoiler free, but you see all my reactions going on, like so much is happening and it's almost like a slow build up, but after reading the other book you kind of know where this one is like headed and where it's supposed to go, so I was anticipating that the whole time and I just like absolutely loved it. I loved the storyline that this one took. I loved everything that happened in this one. It's been my favorite so far. The best decision I made was reading this. The best thing I ever did was listening to Destiny and her telling me to read this, because it's just one of my newfound favorite series, because the main character, I think she's my favorite fantasy female main character ever. She is just iconic and I love her. Now let's get into the other books that I read not part of Throne of Glass. I read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This one I really wanted to read because I read The 7-Year Slip the month prior and I was obsessed with it. I still can't stop thinking about it. I just think her writing is so beautiful. I think that the storyline was beautiful, the characters and everything about it was just like so beautiful. So I was really excited to read another one of her books. This one I believe I gave 3.5 stars. Hold on. Yeah, I think I gave this one 3.5. The main character has to go home because of something and she has this ability to see ghosts. So while she's there, she sees this ghost and the ghost and her kind of have this like relationship connection going on, but only she can see him. And while she's home, I think what she was doing at home I think slowed down for me a little bit. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but I just feel like I lost the connection between the characters and the story and everything because I just got a little bored with that. But when she was talking to the ghost or everything going on with that and their connection relationship and the dialogue and the stuff that they were kind of going through, that part intrigued me more. So that's why I gave it 3.5. I still love her writing. I binged this book. Her writing is so easy to follow along. It's also one of those books that you can just sit and binge in a day and just it feels good reading her stories because you have kind of like a literary fiction, but she throws in like a subplot of romance with like the magical element, and all of that mixed together just makes such a really well-rounded story. Like I really enjoy her writing and the storyline she comes up with, but this one just wasn't my absolute favorite, but it's still good. Throughout this month I also read The Ex-Hex and The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This was our book club book of the month for our book club. If you guys want to join us, we are reading The 7-Year Slip actually in our Patreon. It's linked in the description. We have a Discord and everything like that if you want to come join us to read The 7-Year Slip this month with us. But we read The Ex-Hex, and this are both kind of like a rom-com-y with a magical element of witches included in them, and I think they were just honestly the perfect just fast-paced witchy romances for the month of October. Like the vibes that I got from this and like the writing style was honestly perfect for the month. It fit the vibe. Ex-Hex follows Vivi and Reese actually, and they're both witches. They come from pretty big witch families, but her and Reese dated for a few months in college and something happened with him and he was sent home, and her cousin one night put a hex on Reese and he doesn't know about it. They're kind of joking around, but he has to come back 9 years later to the town that she lives in, which is a really small town. It gives Halloween vibes. It's such a cute little town. Her aunt actually owns like a witchy type of store. It's so cute, but he goes back to town and things just start going terribly wrong. So now they have to work together to figure out how to fix all the things going on, but then also the two of them seeing each other again and seeing if their relationship is still a thing. And honestly, this one, I feel like the relationship and the romance wasn't my favorite. Like it was there, but it felt a little bit too physical for me. Like it just felt purely physical at most moments, but I enjoyed following along with like the mystery of saving whatever was going on. Like that was really fun. There's also like little humor thrown in here. The rom-com part of it I loved a lot. Like it was very like comedic at times and I liked that. But yeah, it was cute. It wasn't anything crazy. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. Yeah, The Kiss Curse is a companion novel to it. You don't have to read that Ex-Hex to read this one, but this one is about Vivi's cousin Gwyn, the one she put the hex on her ex with. So you have Gwyn and the other main character Wells, and he comes to the town and he opens up a storefront right across from Something Wicked, which is the store that her and her aunt own and whatever. So now they're kind of rivalry going on, and her and Wells had something kind of in the past that went on, and now Gwyn just like doesn't like him. She doesn't like what he's about, his personality, his attitude, that he's broody and just a gloomy guy. So they kind of just don't get along, but then something happens and now they're on a kind of like a mystery journey going on together. So you get the same thing that kind of happens in the first one where the two of them kind of have to follow along different clues and figure out something that's going on with the magic system. So that part's really fun. But again, the romance in here is really quick. It comes really quick and it just feels really physical. Again, because these books are really short, they're fast paced, like not a lot of depth to them, but it's also really fun to follow along. It's like a 300-page book, so like you don't get too much on the romance because you also have to follow along with the mystery going on. But still, these books are so cute. If you're looking for a witchy Halloween type vibe, honestly they're perfect. They're very fast paced, quick books, but nothing too crazy. I do think that she's gonna come out with a third one because there's a third guy that's like kind of connected to all of them, and I'm really excited for that one. Honestly, if it comes out next Halloween season, I'll definitely be reading them just because the vibes were there. I actually read Spells for Lost Things by Jenna Evans Welch before I read The Ex-Hex. Or The Kiss Curse? I don't know, but I ended up reading this month as well. I wanted to read a few Halloween-y, witchy type books just to kind of get in the fall Halloween mood. This one is the same author as Love and Gelato, which I have not read that trilogy, but I've heard great things. It's a YA series. This is also a YA book, and this one follows two main characters. They're both of their point of views. You have the first one, Willow, who has always had this feeling of like wanderlust feeling. She's never felt like home. She always wants to travel and like find her home elsewhere. And then you have Mason, who kind of feels the same, but in a different sense. He's in the foster care system, so he's never felt at home, but he actually ends up getting taken in by this foster family, and he's still looking for his mom and like trying to find his mom, but he finds out that the mom of the family that took him in kind of has a connection to his mom, so he's like, oh, I could like stay here and kind of figure it out. And where that family lives is in Salem, Massachusetts. So Willow ends up having to go to Salem, Massachusetts as well because her aunt died and her mom never told her about her aunt. She's very blindsided by this, so now the both of them are in Salem, and Willow's trying to figure out the history of her family. She's now finds out that she has a history of witches in her family, like was her aunt a witch and all of this going on, and then they cross paths eventually, and you have kind of like the history of the both of them, so when you cross paths you kind of understand what they're going through. I really enjoyed the history of like the witches and her family, and in the setting of Salem, like the whole vibe of it was honestly also perfect for October and the Halloween season. I think I gave this one 3 stars. Hold on, I think I gave it 4. 3.75. All these 0.5s and point whatever ratings are getting me confused, but this one I gave it 3.75. It was cute, it was fun. I really liked the two main characters because you get the depth of them and the background of them before they connect and anything. It's not as romance heavy for the YA book. I think you follow more of their journeys, but then closer to the end you get the romance that's actually really cute. So cover also is just so cute. Then I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the last and final book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. This one was the most anticipated book ever. I just feel like reading the first two. They're so different from a lot of fantasies that I've read because the fairy tale aspect is so like just whimsical and beautiful. The Ballad of Never After is one of my favorite books ever. That's the second book in the series, and the way that it ends is such a cliffhanger, such like a plot twist, and you're just like left with no answer. So that's why this I feel like is so anticipated, because you just want to see how the story ends. Like, is there a happily ever after? Like, what's gonna go on? So this one was just very hyped. I was expecting things, and I think I like kind of created almost the way I wanted it to go in my head. So while reading this, it just didn't go the way I personally wanted it to. I still love her writing. It's very, again, whimsical. It's beautiful. She's more of a tell don't show writer, which I feel like sometimes I don't love, but reading this, it's very kind of surface level. You're just getting dialogue and the story, and there's not a lot of description going on, but it's still good. Like the way that she creates a setting and an atmosphere is just, it's again so beautiful. But the storyline part of it, I just feel like I wanted or I expected more romance, because you're kind of in a slow burn the first two books and a lot of tension going on. So going into this, I expected it to be like more heavy on the romance, but it was more heavy on the plot, on the mystery, and you get a few point of views, and there was one point of view that I just feel like was too much of that point of view. Like I wanted more of Jax. Like that's the main character that I feel like the whole series is my favorite, and honestly without him in the series I wouldn't have loved it so much. So I, going into this, expected a lot of him, and we didn't get as much as I personally wanted, but I think it was still fun to follow along. I think her writing was so fast-paced. I like binged this in basically a day. I love the setting. I love Evangeline. I feel like she's such a different type of fantasy female main character that I read. She's more on a journey to find love, and she's kind of like a hopeless romantic and like one true love and all of this, and it's very like, again, whimsical. Like she's that type of main character. So following along with her, all these books I really enjoyed, including this one. I just feel like there's a few little plot holes, but other than that, I did really enjoy the writing and the story. Just from what I wanted, what I expected, I didn't get from that, but still, it was 4 stars. It wasn't bad. It was still good. It's just some expectations were a little high for this one. Last, but certainly, most certainly, not least, I somehow got the arc for Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I read this after finishing Queen of Shadows, and it was the most perfect book to read after reading so many fantasies and just Throne of Glass series. My brain could stop thinking and just like enjoy a romantic comedy, not a romantic comedy, a contemporary romance, and I haven't read one in a while. Like all the ones I read, I feel like kind of had a magical element to it this month other than Hopeless, but that was like very in the beginning of the month. Like throughout the whole month I didn't read too many books like this or any books like this, so I was so excited. And my favorite thing about this, or one of my favorite things, is the writing style of it. It reminded me so much of Elsie Silver's writing from the Chestnut Spring series, which is my favorite. Like the dialogue, the story, the side characters, and all of them together, and all of this like mixed together made like the perfect romantic, why do I keep saying romantic comedy? No, contemporary romance book. And this is, I think, my favorite out of any Lauren Asher books I read. This one takes place in Lake Wisteria, which if you finish the Dreamland Billionaire series, the last book, The Final Offer, takes place in Lake Wisteria as well. So it's in the same universe, but you're following different characters and different side characters and everything. This one follows Julian and Dahlia, and they grew up together as family friends, and their moms are best friends. They've spent so much time together. They go to college together, and they've always had a connection with each other, but something happens and they haven't really spoken or seen each other. She moved away to San Francisco, and he's like stayed home at Lake Wisteria exterior, but she comes home because of something, and obviously they're forced to see each other again, especially in the setting of their homes because their moms are best friends. Their moms are also like egging them on, always wanting them to be together because they're family friends, obviously. So you have all of that and you have them having to see each other again. And she is actually an interior designer, a very famous one. She has kind of like almost like, think of like an HGTV show, and he's also a billionaire, so it's another billionaire romance, which I completely ate up. But the thing I loved about this was Julian's character, because he was just so down bad for her, and you knew from the beginning like he did not stop liking her all this time. Like the things he would say, the things he would do kind of to show that he cared. He was kind of like a shower, not like a teller, but it was just like the little things he did or the little things he had. It just like made me so giddy, and I was like kicking my feet. Their dialogue and like the banter between the two of them I loved so much. I loved the whole family and like the side characters with the main characters, and I ended up giving this one 4.75 stars. I'm like between 4.75 and a 5 because after reading this I had no faults within this book. Like I loved everything, the setting, the characters, the dialogue, the romance, everything about this was just done so right. I loved everything. So I don't know if I'm gonna give it a 5-star or not. If I continue thinking about it throughout the next few weeks or something, I'll probably give it a 5-star. I don't know. Right now I'm sitting at a 4.75. I think on Goodreads I put a 5, but I'm at 4.75. It was so good. I loved this. I ate it up. It's also pretty thick. It's like almost 500 pages, but like it did it justice. It was so good. I cannot wait for you guys have to read this. When this comes out, you guys need to read this. I think it comes out November 7th, which is pretty soon. I think that's next week. So yeah, I'm excited for everyone to read this. And it was so good. It was just what I needed. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of October. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions, any books that you're gonna read in November. I'm about to go film my November TBR, so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited for the books that are gonna be on the TBR, or hopefully on the TBR this month. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I will see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!